All right, Mike, we are back for the first analyst hour of the season. We just went through a crazy draft. First of all, let's get well acquainted again. So tell, how was your off season? Have you put in the work? What are you looking to bring to the ASL as A, as a new rehire, and B, as a player? Yeah, just let's get well acquainted again, man.
Yeah, it's been a great off season. I'd love to say I've been hitting the gym 10 hours a day, putting in the work. I haven't really touched the basketball that much, but that's okay. At this point last season, I hadn't really either, and I arguably could have been most improved player, and that's a whole different discussion. And yeah, I'm just looking at the roster. I just think this is going into last season. I had a feeling it was going to be our best season yet. It was, and I feel the same thing about this season. I think the roster's even stronger, more talented, more devoted. So I'm just really looking forward to getting back out there with the boys.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great year. And this, like you said, the roster is great. The draft went really well as well. The league is wide open, but let's jump into it, okay? I'm gonna name you a few captains, actually all the captains, and I let's just debrief, okay? So let's just start there. Rishi Srinivasan will be leading the Hell Kites this year, and we're gonna do captain only for now. We'll jump into the draftees later. Um, let's do a quick analysis of Rishi.
Yeah, I mean, so he was there in the 2018 Summer League, our second season, and he was arguably one of the better captains we've ever had. I know the ASL has been trying to get him back almost every season, just kind of anticipating a no when we went forward again this year, and sure enough, he was available. But he was a great captain. Players loved playing for him. He beat Cedric Gillette in Lob City, which even though his team had a 1-0 series lead in a best two or three, I think everyone thought that Lob City was going to beat them, and he led them to that. And I think they were only one win away from actually reaching the ASL finals that day. I know people compare him to Rajon Rondo, and I see it like he really has the only facet of his game he's really missing is the shooting. He's a great defender, great ball handler, great
And
playmaker. Most
I think
important,
more importantly, he's a great leader, and you touched upon that already. Like the kid is quick,
yeah.
the skill is there, it is tangible, it is just very obvious to the naked eye. He brings a great skill set that is ASL friendly, of course. Like you said, players are happy to play for him. He shows up, he's passionate, and he goes into every game with a plan, which I think will pay dividends for him long term. Hopefully, he carries that skill and that mentality into this year as well. We're very happy to have him back. Colin Kirkpatrick, let's jump on to him. Super Pandas last year. He is an ASL champion with Inferno. And what do you think it takes for him to get over the hump again and get to that second championship?
Yeah, it's a great question because he had his team. You were on at the Super Pandas, had arguably the best regular season you guys could have had, and it still just didn't come together in the playoffs again for Colin. So he needs to play his. I feel like Colin has been peaking in the regular season lately, and he's a dominant player. He's arguably the best shooter in the league, maybe second. But I feel like in the past years, him and his team specifically have been hitting their peaks too early, and come playoff time, they're not playing at their highest level, and they're caught off guard. So I think he just needs to maintain a higher level of consistency, and also I think he needs to. Maybe he's very selfless with the ball in his hand, and in some cases, I feel like he should honestly even be more aggressive and take more of those shots himself. And I think, as we'll get into, his team drafted later is great to get him the best looks and help him on defense. So I think Colin is poised to make an actual playoff run this year for the first time in a while.
Yeah,
Or in
one
two
thing that I
seasons.
really appreciate about playing for Colin, and if I couldn't go to Ryan, I'd be more than happy to go to Colin. Colin is a very stand-up guy. Again, another passionate captain who likes to get everyone involved. He has the grit, and he's a killer. I mean, the guy can just say, "Give me the ball. I'm going to win us this game," and he'll do that. And he time and time again, he proves it. My one thing I want to see more from Colin this year as a captain is that, in terms of last year when I played alongside him, I noticed that he didn't become super versatile with his game unless he needed to. And and obviously that was great in those moments where we really needed, maybe his shot wasn't falling, and we needed someone to step up and have a paint presence, and he was always that guy. I would love to see him be this versatile and reach into his bag more consistently. I think if he should, I mean, many people look at Colin and just compliment his shooting, but he has so much more as a player, and I would like to see him display that more, and not only in times of desperate need for it, but it's there, and I want to see him use it more, and I think that will really help him and his teammates in every game. Stephen Shaw. I won't even
I mean,
go further.
it's hard to really. Yeah, it's really hard. I was going to say it's hard to really criticize anything about Steven Shaw. So he's the GOAT for a reason, and
Just
you
just
know,
don't hurt your ankle and he'll be fine. He hurt his ankle and he was fine. So, yeah. How about instead of praising Steven, we just got to say what does it take to beat him? Even though we haven't seen evidence of it, what is it going to take to beat Steven?
I mean, if like I guess there was like one time last season that he wasn't hitting his shot. If he's not hitting his shots, you can clog the paint, and I mean, it's not like he's always had reliable teammates, but I mean, if you can force them to take the shots, it's still better than him taking the shots. So really, just yeah, if it just you gotta hope he misses some threes, and hope that he's forced to depend on his teammates, which even though they're a good supporting cast, they're not him.
Yeah, I agree.
You think? What do you think?
Unfortunately, with this player of the caliber of the player of the caliber of skill of Stephen Shaw has, there's nothing that you can do to make him worse. I think we have to accept that. I think what you have to do to beat Stephen Shaw is only hone in on your performance. Steven's not going to shoot 10 for 10, right? Steven's teammates aren't going to shoot 5 for 5 or 6 for 6 or 3 for 3. Point is, like, there are missed shots and there are possessions you are going to get guaranteed. Now, what you need to do, and this is hard, and this is why it's so hard to beat the kid, is you need to make every possession count. It is make and take it, and you need to make sure you exercise that as much as you can. I think efficiency will beat Stephen Shaw. Take the easy shots, take the high percentage looks, and I think you obviously play defense and try to get the block, try to get the rebound, try to get the steal away from Steven and his teammates. But I think the thing that's going to separate you from keeping it a close game or losing to victory is simply just efficiency. If you want to beat Stephen Shaw, you have to shoot 10 for 10, and your teammates have to shoot 5 for 5, 6 for 6. You know what I'm talking about? So I think that's what really lies. That is the treasure to beat Stephen Shaw. And we'll see. We'll see if it happens. Our next captain is a rookie, Jack Curtin. I would love to do this jump into analysis, but to be frank, I've never seen him play.
I mean, I guess I've seen him play like once or twice, and what I'm going to say is not a slight at all to Pat Shambo, who's an excellent ASL player, but I almost feel like from what I've seen, Jack Curtin is kind of like a rich man's Pat, where he's got the defense, the playmaking, and the elite driving skills and ball handling and all that, but just almost at a higher level. And but I mean, both Pat is a great player. It's not a slight to him; it's more just a compliment to what I think Jack can bring to the league.
Yeah, I actually, what I heard is that he apparently he has an electric first step. He can get into the paint and finish well. I think he's got all the tools. Is what I'm hearing. I'm not apprehensive we made the wrong choice to make Jack a captain. I was kind of hands off in that decision. I just kind of went through word of mouth and trusted the people, my sources that I reached out to, just to get a quick assessment of him. Nick Resendez, he is leading the Spartans this year. What do you think about that?
I think Nick Resendez is going to tear up the league this season because most rookies struggle at the beginning of the ASL, at the beginning of their ASL careers because they don't realize how competitive this league actually is. Nick Resendez was absolutely a victim of that, but you saw those last few games of last regular season were his best games. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's because he upped his level of play. He upped his effort on both offense and defense, and he was playing out of his mind. It was too little, too late to get into the playoffs, but it was still a very high level of play with Nick Resendez. And if he enters the season like that and plays like it throughout the season, I would be shocked if the Spartans didn't miss in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that you took the words right out of my mouth. Perfectly said. That was a player who turned it up when he had to, but unfortunately it was too little, too late. There is something called the ASL curse and a little bit of the ASL lore when a high-skilled player comes and underperforms their first game simply because they don't know how competitive the atmosphere in the game is. And I think the perfect example of that is not to call him out again, but Colin lost to me, Sean Bradshaw, and Arman Yazdi. Because our Emmett Kim wasn't there. Shocker. but I think that just shows. But he ended up winning the championship. So there is a threshold, and there is a a quick window of adjustment you need to make, especially as a rookie. And I hope Nick comes in hungry because he has the skill to really elevate his team and elevate this, the whole environment of the league. So I hope to see him do that. Ryan Cadigan, up there for one of
Yeah,
the oldest vets.
yeah. I mean, Ryan. You know, I was on the Swarm. I'm a little biased. I think that last season was not a reflection of Ryan. It was more of a reflection of just bad luck in terms of obviously his number one draft pick hurting his ankle for the second half of the season, and that after that happened, he didn't win another game, and sure enough, we missed the playoffs. But I don't think it's a reflection on Ryan. Ryan is just he's a winner. He's been around for forever. He doesn't really have any major weaknesses in his game, and I'm assuming after missing the playoffs, he's going to be hungrier than ever, and that's going to count for something. So,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
Ryan is super underrated in terms of how people perceive his game. Obviously, I may be biased, but I think I always talk about like that killer instinct, the person who always says like, "Shut the fuck up, give me the ball, I'm going to win this game." And I think there's only so few people who have that, and I think he has that. And even though I think what you guys go 0-3 without Nick Zalanskas,
yes,
I think those are, even though you lost, I think those are games that all of you should have been proud of, especially Ryan. Um, Again, I say this as nicely as I can. He obviously had a less competitive team compared to everyone else, and the fact that he, made games close, a lot, worked with what he had. You were playing well. He had you playing well. Had Squeezy playing well, and again, Ryan did whatever he could do, whether it was shooting beyond the arc or getting inside the paint or grabbing that extra rebound. I think Ryan's presence as a captain and a player is enormous. And again, it bothers me how a lot of people undersell him. And even whether I'm on his team or not, I enjoy watching him win. So I anticipate that, assuming the cards are better dealt with him, meaning his number one draftee does not hurt his ankle, it's gonna write a different. We're gonna see an ending to that same story, a different ending of that same story. So I'm really happy for him in regards to that. Alex Pisacreta, aka Pissy. What are our thoughts with that?
I mean, he had an incredible rookie season. Obviously, won Rookie of the Year for a reason. Well, I'd say an above average captain in the league, and I was genuinely shocked when he got eliminated in the first round last season, just because he's one of the most unguardable players in the league. I think when we did player comparisons, I think one of the more accurate player comparisons was Alex Pisacreta as John Morant, because when he attacks the rim, you just got to put your arms up and pray. And
Yeah.
I feel like we haven't had a lot of captains that are so drive first, like finishing first, and he just does it and he excels in it. And it doesn't mean he can't shoot the ball, but him attacking the rim, and if the paint's clogged, he's going to set up his teammate and get him wide open. I think he's dangerous, and I expect him to, up his game in the playoffs, which he was unable to do last season.
I think last year will really benefit Alex going into this year. I think when it comes to the difference between year two versus year one with captains and even with players, this is an early prediction. I think we're going to see the biggest difference in a positive way between Alex in year one and year two. I think he knows how the league goes now. I think he knows the rhythm of each game. Maybe he applied that to how he drafted this year. We'll unpack that later. And I think, like you said, he's unguardable. He can really carve the paint, and he has this competitive edge and this competitive drive in him that really goes a long way. And I think that is such an intangible that a lot of people don't really pay attention to when it comes to a player and a captain. Like he's a person who, walks away storming when he loses, like respectfully. And it's good to see that, because that, shows how much he cares. And I think it's great. And I love the way he carries himself. I think you are lucky if you're drafted to his team. And we'll get in to see if he drafted accordingly to his what he needs to be a well-rounded, in-depth team. But yeah, I'm really excited to see him this year, and I think he'll do great things. Last but not least, Connor Fu.
Connor Fu, I mean, he's just year after year, he's just been a spectacular regular season player. He's won MVP. He's won Depoy, he's one most improved player. Like he just really does a little bit of everything.
He's won
And
everything he's eligible. He has won everything he's eligible for, which is crazy.
yeah, if there was all ASL first team, he'd be on it every season. But it's just yeah, he just
But
has not had enough.
Michael, we can't ignore the missing thing in his trophy case. What is it going to take for Connor Fu to fill his trophy case up 100% capacity and win an ASL championship?
I mean, I will say he's also not last season, but in previous seasons, he's been very unlucky in terms of playoff availability and last minute stuff messing up in the playoffs. But last season, it was tough because of just how consistent he was all season, and I don't know if it was the pressure, I don't know if it was the ramped up defense of what did he lose to the Mateys, right? No,
No,
I don't know.
no. Yeah, I forget
No,
too.
no, Mateys beat Pegasus. I don't know. Oh, he lost to
Stampede beat the
round.
Stags.
Yeah, and I mean, they're also just an incredible defensive team, so you can only fault them so much for that. But yeah, he needs a team where he is not the only scoring threat. And I know both Sam and Dennis were great for him last year, but they're both players that almost do everything but score. Like they will bring everything to a team, but they're not like scorers at heart. And Connor needs to take some of the pressure off of himself because at the end of the day, when it came down to it in the playoffs, he was the one who needed to take those shots, and the defense adjusted to it. They were all over him, and there wasn't much he could do. So he really needs a better foundation around him to be able to actually make a run in the playoffs. And as we'll touch on later, he probably has that this season.
Yeah. Last two things before we officially go into draft grading. And then the third, we'll have a special guest call in to do the draft grading with us, fellow co-commissioner Arvin Nunez. So he'll help us out with the grading, and then we will release that on the Instagram later. But I'll give you a quick layout on how the rest of the show is going to go. We're going to talk about two things regarding the draft and one player, or two players, both regarding the draft. Then we're going to do the draft grading. And then our third and final segment, which is usually the fun one, you have to give either an ASL hot take or a way too early season prediction. So just sit on that, okay?
Great.
First thing we're going to talk about. For those who are maybe an ASL casual, they might be raising an eyebrow by seeing the captain's board and noticing it, noticing not seeing a familiar face. And of course, that familiar face would be ASL all-time legend Ian Chowdhury. Ian Chowdhury is now a draftee. This is headline breaking news for some, and let's talk about that. Do you think this is a smart move on Ian's part? Do you think maybe he jumped the ship too early? Let's unpack it.
Well, I think in terms of legacy-wise, I think what's going to save Ian legacy-wise is obviously he won the first ASL ring in history, but that was 6 seasons ago. But the fact that he got a playoff win that, I'm not going to say no one, but a majority, when we did polls, majority of the league did not expect him to get that playoff series win against Pegasus. And I think they swept him too. So that really, he still proved that he can win at the ASL level as a captain. The issue is that as the captain pool's gotten more and more talented, not to say that he's in a Hall of Famer, he's an ASL great. He was the LeBron James of the ASL for the first spring and fall league. But at the end of the day, I think Ian made the right decision. It was a business decision, but he proved, or it was proven that it wasn't like an unfair transition for him to jump from player to captain because he was the 6th pick in the draft. If it was that unfair, he wouldn't have gone past 2. So I think that kind of validated his switch in a way, and I think he's a great top-tier first-round talent, and I think he's more, at this point in his career, more of a top-tier first-round talent than a low-tier captain-level talent. So I think he made the right decision.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think you've articulated that perfectly. I will say, though, him going at 6 was crazy to see. I really, in my mental mock draft, I never got one out and physically jotted it down, but I did not ever have him going past 4. I knew he wasn't going to go first because I knew Matt Short was going to go to Connor Fu. They're going to have a great season together. They're going to have a good time, and obviously Connor would have wanted to pass up on that opportunity. to play with one of his best friends, but I didn't see Ian going past 4. If you told me Ian was going to fall to 5, I would have called you crazy. And here he is going at 6. You want to talk about getting the best value out of a player for a draft pick? I mean, that's got to be up there for one of the best ones. That's crazy. I agree. I think Ian made the right move. I think the gap was increasingly getting bigger as the ASL captains grew more talented, and also our draft pool didn't really see a big increase in talent, so we had less and less help. Of course, he had Matt Sheward, which was Matt Sheward went to Ian, which was the only real possibility of that happening. Ian getting the first overall pick, Matt Sheward being the blatant best player in the draft pool, of course. But aside from that that one big presence of Matt Sheward in the draft pool, it's mainly remained the same because we prioritize loyal players who have played with us before. So of course, we're not going to see a big shift in the draft pool itself. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think you articulated that perfectly. It was definitely the right move. And number 2, you've all know how the draft gone. You've seen the graphic on Instagram. You know the teams. So let's just jump into one last thing before we actually start getting into the draft grades. Colin Kirkpatrick probably pulled the dirtiest move in the most stand-up, clean way that we've ever seen in a draft. For those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, at the 7th overall pick, despite the players' wishes and despite Stephen Shaw's wishes and this whole run-it-back narrative that has been sweeping the league, Colin Kirkpatrick took AJ Clark with his 7th overall pick. However, he did forewarn Stephen Shaw prior to the draft. So yeah, let's talk about this. Was this the right move for Colin? Was AJ even the best player available at the time for him? Should he have done it? What does this mean for AJ? How would you feel if you were AJ? What are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, in terms of just draft value, and specifically AJ felt right where he belonged at the 7th overall pick. I think he was just purely skill-based, remove all personality, all past. AJ was the best pick for Colin in that moment. There's no arguing with that. But, just to make an NBA comparison, like, what good is it to have Kyrie Irving if he's not satisfied with being on the team? I mean, we already, it's not to say that AJ has the emotional capacity of Kyrie Irving, but he just, he obviously, he made his intentions clear. He's and if you have a player, we're not just it's not like a video game. Like, these are players with personalities and emotions, and AJ's won 2 championships in a row with Stephen Shaw. He's been a crucial addition to that team. He made it very clear he wanted to go back. I mean, it was the best unkept secret in the league that Stephen Shaw was going to try to draft Pat and AJ again. And if you're just taking AJ as the player he is, he's going to be a great fit for Colin. I think he was the right pick. But if he's not all in anymore, if he's not playing with this, because AJ's the type of player that if he's not playing 100% effort, he's not going to bring much to the game, because his grittiness, his rebounding, his pick setting, his defense, that's where his specialty comes from. That's why he's such a great ASL player. But if he's really not all in, if he's not bought in on Colin's team, if he's looking over at Stephen Shaw's other court when it's it's game time, that's going to be no good for the Vikings.
That's going to feel very like you got detention during recess. Like, he's going to be looking through the window. It's going to be
like the SpongeBob meme where Squidward looking at Patrick and SpongeBob running and having fun. Like, that's AJ right now. So,
yes.
Yeah. But
that'd be a great ASL
meme. Yeah.
I'm actually going to defend Colin, and I might ruffle some feathers here. I appreciate Colin for trying his best to honor this run it back wish by the Pride this year, but really it was the Funky Monkeys from last year. Why? Why the hell would you want to let these kids run it back again? Do you want to win? Why would you let these kids run it back again? I know you want to make everyone happy. I know we're all friends here, but I'm glad someone made a big fucking move and stripped Steven from one of his assets in the most respectful way possible. Because if Ian or Dennis had fallen to Colin and AJ was still on the board, Colin probably would have honored his word and honored the wishes of those players and picked Ian or Dennis. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I'm glad someone made a fucking move to try to take down, the Thanos that is Stephen Shaw. Again, he pulled the dirtiest move in the most respectful way. I think his hands are technically blood free. I don't think he did anything, out of pocket or anything crazy. He's been transparent this entire time. And I do feel bad for AJ because if I were in that situation, I'd be pretty upset too. But you still went to the second best captain in the league. So, as much as AJ is probably a bit bummed out, I totally understand it. But it's not like he went to a bad team or a bad scenario. I'm happy someone made a move. This is a big move. If this was like a big brother, like you add that on your resume, like that was a great move for him. I'm happy someone did it. I think it's great that everyone's nice and like, oh, let's honor their wishes just so they can have the same team again. Like, what's the point of even drafting? What's the point of even drafting then? I mean, like, we are letting this unbeatable team remaining untouched. I think it was crazy. I'm glad they split up. And I totally understand the frustration of everyone in there. Like, I totally can see Steven being like, oh, shit, man, of course they want to be together. They're unbeatable. Of course. I don't blame them. But yeah. I'm glad they split up for the better of, like, I won't say the fairness, because, like, even though they are pretty unbeatable, they didn't look completely immortal, you know what I mean? But no, this is a good move. I think it's a good move for the league. And I'm going to defend Colin because he did the dirtiest move in the cleanest way. And like I said, in my eyes, he gets off scot-free. He didn't do anything unfair or anything crazy. He didn't go behind anyone's back. I think everyone's feelings, whether it's annoyed or happy, are valid in this situation. And I do feel bad for AJ because, unfortunately, he definitely got the short end of the stick of being the lone wolf in this big funky monkey breakup. But again, he's going to a good situation, so he'll be taken care of just fine. And I'm excited to see those guys face off again. When I talk about these guys, I'm talking about the Pride and the Vikings. But yeah, yes, that's where I lie. I'm sorry if I ruffle some feathers. Everyone's feelings in this situation are valid. Because like I said, no one went behind anyone's back or anything like that. But I'm glad to see it. And I'm curious to see it. With that said, Steven replaced AJ with Costa. Now, everything he lost defensively with AJ going to the Vikings, he pretty much got back offensively with Costa. Is the Pride a scarier team than the Funky Monkeys were last year?
I mean, it really, in my opinion, I know this isn't a hot take or a crazy development. It all comes down to Costa's availability. And I think Costa really situationally lucked out being on the Stampede and going on such a long playoff run because he had, a track record of being an excellent ASL player, but is he going to show up? Is he going to communicate?
Is he going to answer a call when it's Sunday at 4:59?
You just never know. It's a wild card. Like, no one has ever questioned Costa's game. It's just the off the court, like not like that he's a bad teammate, but is he even going to be there in the first place? And for him being on the Stampede and them going on such a long playoff run and him showing up every single game, even the final game, the championship game's rescheduled, he's the first one there again. Like, Costa really improved his draft stock, showed how dangerous it is when he's not only him playing, but when he's present week after week, building the continuity with his teammates. I think Steven Shockley saw that. I mean, he played against him in the final game. He was there every week for the playoffs. He saw what Costa brought to the table. I think it's incredibly dangerous, and it's not a slight at AJ, but if Costa does show up on a consistent basis, then the best team in the league might have just gotten even better. So, yeah, it's definitely very scary. Do you think they're better or worse? Just on paper.
On paper, I think they're better. On paper, I think they're better. I think everything considered, though, my answer will change. Because you got to remember, AJ, Pat, and Steven had the best chemistry I think the ASL has ever seen. That's why they were on the same page from the first basket to the last. And not to say Costa's going to interrupt that, but it's a new player, it's a new style. He's also not as close as friends with them. Like, those are three guys who are very close friends to begin with. So Costa's definitely the new guy in town. I think that we're going to see again there might be an adjustment period. So I think we'll get a much better sense of the team like week 2 or week 3, maybe even week 2. And I can give you a better answer. But on paper, I think they're scarier. They might be more beatable because when you have someone like Orion or Nick Galantis or Carter who were pretty much not eliminated, but were definitely deterred because of AJ's presence, now are wide open in the paint. So I think a big man on an opposing team for the Pride is going to have a much bigger impact this year than they would have last year. And that could be a big difference maker. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds. All right. I mean, are there any other big takeaways from the draft? We'll get into it because we're going to go through draft grading, but with any particular instances, any last things?
I mean, I think we touched on everything. I don't want to, jump in on stuff and then repeat it in the next segment, but I think we really want to overall the most controversial things of the draft were Ian falling to 6 and Colin taking AJ. So I think we did a good job breaking on touching that down, and now it's time to go through each team and grade them individually and give more in-depth analysis, which is what we do here in Analyst Hour. So
exactly. I reached out to Arvin, but before he joins us, I guess we'll do a few last things that I wanted to just address. Dennis Tavares skyrocketing, being a first rounder now, coming off of his Deep Boy win. So let's talk about that. And was he picked at the right place? We'll talk about that, but we'll also got to talk about Dan Gerges, who was once a third rounder, now back in the second round. Do you think that he fell where he belonged there as well?
I mean, in terms of Dennis, I think Dennis showed how valuable he is to an ASL team last year, especially in the defensive end. But even, he's great at finishing. He's an athlete. He's a football player. Like, he's just a natural athlete. He's great to have on the court. That being said, I mean, I do think there were better, just in terms of all-around talent. I think there were more talented options when he was picked, whether it be, Ian, Costa, even Alex Trottier, who again hasn't, no one's really seen much of him because he's a rookie. But I think there were more purely talented options. But that being said, Rishi, I think he's the smallest captain. He needs an athletic body like Dennis does. Yeah, but Dennis is just, he's an athlete. He's a great vertical. He's a great defender, great rebounder. That's exactly what Rishi needs to complement him. So,
but Rishi also got Trottier too in the second round. He has both of them.
Which is, yeah, and I think that's, honestly, I think that's a great team. I just think realistically, probably Trottier should have gone 5th, and Rishi and Dennis should have been the 10th pick in the draft. But it doesn't matter. They're both top tier, or definitely upper echelon ASL players, and maybe Dennis went ahead of some more talented players, but it's definitely not a questionable pick. Like, everyone, it's not like, why would he draft? Like, everyone knows what Dennis brings to the table.
100%. Yep. And last thing, before Arv turns on his camera and we see his beautiful, oh, he just did, seeing his beautiful face. Oh. Yeah, what was the other thing I was talking about? Oh, Dan Gerges. He went from third round to second round. Do you think that was and you think that was like a well-deserving upgrade for him? I
mean, I think in terms of, like, Dan is a top 5 shooter in the league for captain or draft
I think
player.
He's probably top 3. Oh, like excluding captains, he's probably top 2, top 3. Yeah.
Yeah, but regardless, the thing about Dan, he was the 4th man of the year. He thrived in his role last season, coming off the bench. Getting out there. He's already one of the most competitive players in the league. Everyone.
We know he's prone to cramps, though.
Love him. He did have a cramp at a very untimely time, but and shout out to Zach Chinian for filling him in and when he needed to. But yeah, I mean, I think Dan went in terms talent-wise where he belongs, but I think in terms of his role as an ASL player, he's better served coming off the bench. And I think we saw how dangerous it is when he's out there playing, getting defended by the other team's 4th man, having more energy than everyone else on the floor, no shooter's fatigue. I think that really gave Dan the special season. So I don't expect him to have a bad season, but I expect him to fall off a little bit from last season, and maybe he should have been a 4th man again.
Well, we'll see. I mean, yeah, now he's going to be a starter. He's going to be playing. He's going to be on the floor with much better players, competition-wise, and he's going to expected to have more minutes. And he's also expected to have more responsibilities and pressure, and we'll see how we handle that. All right.